Well, hello. This is me trying to look like I haven't been working for days. So whenever our store is closed, when we're supposed to be open, you can be 100% sure there's a million things going on. So today we've been cleaning up the basement so that we can reorganize it into an actual space. Hello, Roberta. Today we are going to be having a little chat as we do. Hello, Christine, called Playing by Your Own Rules, which is, please just ignore all this, but you want to have something fun. This is a boxy top. So Jacqueline, who's one of our customers, when she saw that live that we did before, where we had the ladies from Subtles and Sea Winds come in and talk about some of the styling hacks that they use. So Jacqueline, I guess, watched that video and she goes, oh, I have another one. So she said, if you take a boxy top and you put your hand through the armhole, if you're watching Jacqueline, tell me if I got it right. You can go like this and create a fun, oh, there we go. And our guest is here. Thank you all for joining. So today on Women's Day, we are having an episode of Playing by Your Own Rules with
Hi.
Karen. There
Hello,
she is.
how are you?
Karen. So I'm good, thank you. We've had a busy day at the store. Oh, that does not want to stay there. Look at him falling. There we go. Okay, so yeah, we've had a busy day at the store, but I've been really looking forward to this chat with you. So every other Wednesday, I do this feature where I try to let people who I've met through Sorry Not Sorry meet each other, because you guys are all so freaking amazing and inspiring that I kind of feel like I get all the joy of meeting you all, but you guys don't get to meet each other. So I was thinking that this would be a great opportunity to introduce you to some of the people who wear Sorry Not Sorry and who watch along. And I met Karen at one of the trade shows, and she owns a store that you should all visit because I see a lot of clothes. That's part of my job. And when her feed comes through on Facebook, I start drooling. I was going to miss my daughter's engagement because it was at a cottage, and I'm like, maybe I could just leave for an hour and drive up to Huntsville.
Absolutely, yes.
Sorry, that's where you're located, right? Yeah, yeah. And do a little shopping and then sneak back. So, Karen, tell us about your store and where it is, the kinds of things you carry, because if you were in the neighborhood, I think people really should go. But then we'll start talking about how
well, Fiber is the name of my store, and it kind of came up to be called Fiber because I am a fiber artisan who has delved into making fiber wearable art. The store was originated around that. We planned on opening in Huntsville. I'm on Muskoka Road 3 North by the hospital. If anyone is up in Huntsville, easily can get there by that direction. Anyway, long story short, when we first opened, of course, we planned to open in like the spring of 2020. And of course, we all know what happened then. So I was able to do that when we were able to open, and I house not only my own works of wearable art, but others as well, because it gave them an opportunity to have their wearables or their art pieces fiber related in the store at a time when not much was being able to be done to help them sell their wares. Anyway, long story short, the store has evolved over time because it became really apparent that we were really missing some funky and different kind of fashion in Huntsville. I mean, you think of Huntsville, it's more like cottage country, maybe relaxed clothing wear. But those of us who live here still like to have some choices that are maybe not just always geared to fun and relaxation, and also be able to make a statement about yourself. So basically the store evolved that way, and we're now into pretty much a full line ladies clothing. I would say it's more casual, but at the same time we can dress you up for just about any occasion. So I try my best to carry Canadian lines, but that's not always possible. And lots of them feature wearable art, like artisan paintings, if you will, that have been commissioned back to the artist to be on the fabrics. Namely, some of them are Dolcezza, which is a Canadian-based company out of Montreal, and their sister company, Versace, which is really funky line of clothing. So I would say those are pretty much the mainstay that have been there all along. sariKNOTsari, of course, is there. And, Michael Tyler, we have Bella More, there's many, many others. And I'm starting to import a few things from Europe as well, in particular one called My Soul, which I think is just like very super funky, but comfortable and wearable all at the same. It's just to name a few. And Frock Full of Funk, which is my own clothing line. Which sadly I don't have a lot of time to sew right now because COVID kind of imposed I'm the sole proprietor, owner, operator, hat wearer, accountant, and all that kind of stuff too. So, as time moves on, hopefully we'll be able to employ some people to help me out so I can get back in the studio again.
That would be really great.
Yeah, rather
you know what I love. I mean, I see a lot of boutiques and boutique owners. But there was something about you and how you curate your collection that just seems to have so much joy. Like it's not, that's why I contacted you. I'm like, who I'd really like to chat with? Somebody who I feel has this sparkle.
Oh, wow. Well, I thank you. I mean, that's lovely of you to say. I do feel like my choices, if for lack of a better word at the moment, are things that people can, like you say, take some joy in. I tend to be very colorful, which oddly, as you can see, I'm not really wearing a whole lot of color today, but I do and have always had sort of that compliment in the back of my mind as I grew up that I always looked different. So people like seeing that. They like seeing someone who has a bit of pizzazz or wants to put it out there that you can be different and still be comfortable about it. So perhaps that's where you sense that.
That I sense that you have your own sense of fashion and that you're playing by your own rules and
Absolutely.
you know what you love and what makes you comfortable. But what's extra special is that because you are a business owner, a small business owner, you get to share that passion that you have for, representing your authentic self in clothing to your customers. So it's not just for you now it's for everybody.
And as time has gone on, I do believe that's true because, I get people who come in and even and continue to, especially of late, because with things having opened up a little bit more over the last little bit, it seems like more and more people are arriving and it's like, oh my God, I never knew you were here. And it's like, well, that's okay. Not everybody's been out and about like we had done in the past. And it's refreshing for me to know that there's still a pool of people who haven't even been in the store yet. And it's been almost 3 years. So it's great, and they're always blown away by the different things that they see there, and they say, oh, this isn't like your normal place. Like I can find some fun here. And
that's
even
how people feel at sariKNOTsari as well. There's something about when you come into a store where there's like a fearlessness about color, that you come in and it's an experience. It's an experience to see this collection of interesting, funky, colorful, spirited things. And even if you leave with nothing, you feel a little uplifted that you got to.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, and again, that's what I find with sariKNOTsari. The fabrics are absolutely gorgeous. They're inspiring. They bring out the best in us. And I find that's sort of the theme across the store. It's like, I oftentimes, and I don't know, maybe you experience this as well, but people will come in and say, oh my goodness, I can't possibly wear that. It's just too loud, or it's too this, or it's too that. And it's like, hey, you know what? You wear the clothes. They don't wear you. So you have to take that stance, and if it makes you happy and you put it on and you light up and all of a sudden you become not necessarily that person, but you exude that color, so to speak, and that reflects in everything you do, and the more people I can convince of that, the better I think it'll be.
Well, it's so funny because when you say that, it's almost like women can be afraid to take up space, right? They need to blend into the background and not need to be dealt with visually. So if you are going to wear bright colors, people are going to notice you and they're going to have to factor you in. And that's scary for a lot of women to officially say, I will take up space.
Yeah, I agree. And I totally think that's true. I think and I mean, let's put it this way too. Like, I'm not out to like totally be out there, but at the same time, if I'm wearing something and people notice it because it's different or it's colorful, it's because they're noticing that you're carrying a bit more confidence, or you're walking in a certain way because you feel good about what you're doing. You're not, like you said, not skulking, but
Not
sort of hiding.
hiding. Just kind of, don't look at me.
Yeah.
I promise
So
I'll just wear like jeans and a t-shirt. Don't notice me. We're fine.
absolutely. And so
Yeah.
so I feel like that's sort of been me all along. And I can tell you kind of where that started from. And it really was as a young kid. My mom was a seamstress as well, always has been. And I mean, I learned really from her watching over the years. But I was never allowed to wear like what everybody else was wearing. Like as a younger kid, no shorts, no jeans. It was always things that she had made. And at the time, I absolutely hated that because I wanted to be just like everybody else, right? Because that's
Yeah.
what we do. And we wanted to feel accepted and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, but I mean, the one thing she did let me do is choose the fabrics as long as they were in line, not totally crazy, but most often they were colorful. And I got used to wearing things that were different then, even as a young kid. And I don't know if her intention was to do that or instill that love of different within me, but I think it was more because she was a very, prim and proper kind of girl. Not that I'm not, but I mean, it's just, girls were supposed to wear dresses and pretty little things and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it grew up that way. But I think now I appreciate it even more because, as I said, it really gave me that different personality and the fashion sense that I now carry with me every day.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what started it. Not the way I wanted it to, but hey, it worked out in the end. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
fun.
funny how things do, eh? I often say that if I had to track my life from, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and say where I would be,
Yeah.
this would not
There's
have been it.
no,
You know?
and likely no. I mean, certainly as a hobbyist, for sure. I mean, crafting and fiber. Like I started knitting when I was 4, and always doing things with wool. And I mean, it never stopped really the whole time. And I've since learned other craft that way. I used to I absolutely hated sewing, and I think maybe it was just I wanted to get away from what my mom was doing all the time,
Right.
and but now it's more the mainstay than the other. But always have played around with that kind of thing, and it plays a part every day of my life now. Yeah.
So, and that kind of ties into this whole idea of playing by your own rules. So, one of the things that you do to kind of play by your own rules is that you wear clothes that express that make you feel good, that make you right,
Well,
and that
really,
is playing by your own rules because you're not just kind of doing what everybody else is doing. Are there other ways in your life where you feel like you've played your own rule by your own rules? And is there any moment or anything that you kind of where you stopped and you were like, okay, I have played by the rules for too long. Time for a
exactly.
change. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I mentioned that, as I grew up, I watched my mom and my grandmother too, always doing and making their own thing. So, I mean, it was pretty much instilled in me that it wasn't always what everybody else was doing as far as clothing went. And playing by my own rules, unfortunately, has been grounded, I think, in some events that happened when I was younger. Not necessarily pleasant, but it became obvious to me that following the rules sometimes didn't always make your world a better place. So, without getting into too much detail, I learned very young in life that I needed to protect myself and to move forward in a way that was safe for me.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of guided my whole life, really. I've never been one to, as some of us are, never really like it when somebody tells me what to do and how to do it. So I really have to learn by experience. And so I think that's often a theme for people who play by their own rules, because the ones that is perceived to be the right ones don't always work out for everybody. And so in order
No,
to
and you have to think who's making those rules, right? Like, and
exactly.
even if it's not maliciously, And I'm thinking about like personal goals, not
Exactly.
like society
No,
related things, but
exactly. But I
the
think,
people who say, you have to, I don't know, kiss your uncle on the cheek every time you see him. That is
exactly. But
based on, their perception of how they were raised. But it's, when you stop and think about it, no, maybe
no,
not,
exactly.
maybe
I mean,
not.
let's face it too, like here's a kid who, and I'm speaking of myself, I had like a 95 plus average all the way through school. So it was expected that I was going to go to university, I was going to be that doctor or that lawyer or whatever it was. It was almost like imposed upon me.
Yeah.
And I mean, consequently, and it's not something that I'm in today's day really necessarily happy about, but I never finished university because I just, every time I went, it felt like I was going for somebody else.
Yeah.
And not necessarily focusing on the thing that I wanted to do. I mean, let's face it, nobody's going to tell you you should knit for a living or that you should sew for your life income, because it's not something always that's going to end up being successful or in a way that's going to provide you with a good lifestyle. So I never ever thought, after going to school several different times or, studying the things that everybody else wanted me to, that I'd come back someday and go back to school for what I wanted to do, which ended up being a fiber arts certification program. It was a short course, but it was my 50th birthday present to myself. It was like, you're going to do this and get the piece of paper that actually says you can do it, even though I knew full well I could. But it was good for me to do that. But all along, I've played all these different and worn all these different hats, which really, in the long run, prepared me for being able to do what I do today and to be able to manage it on my own if I need to. I'll always accept help if I can, or if it's there. But I'm able, because of all those hats and playing by my own rules, to do the things that I'm able to do now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it does, playing by your own rules, you really do have to decide where you stand on things, right? And then
Absolutely.
yeah,
And not to say that we don't need, or that we can't adjust how we see that vision, because I think, like everybody else, and always you're learning. Every day is a new day, and goodness me, we learn something new every day. And it's to coin the old phrase, but it's really true. So
no, it's true.
you can mold your own rules around those experiences that you have, and I think that I don't always make the right decisions, none of us do, but I mean, you learn along the way. And
absolutely. It's funny what, to speaking of cliches, their whole life is a journey cliche.
Absolutely.
You hear it so much that you're like, yeah, life's a journey. But I was actually giving this some serious thought the other day, and I'm like, yeah, life is a journey.
It is.
Some days you're too tired to walk. Some days you're stuck in one place because the transportation's not working, or there's a storm, or metaphorically whatever that would be. But yeah, it's not just zooming right along, getting things done, getting to my destination.
And let's face it too. No matter what it is that you're experiencing, it's never just that path that everybody sees you walking. There's all sorts of things that happen on a day-to-day or whatever that culminate in how you make it through the day. So, some days, like you said, are good, some are bad, but I always feel like you've referred to the fact of like colorful dress and all those kinds of things that I honestly, and it keeps coming back. People do notice. And like I said, I'm not out there to be that person, other than that it makes me feel good to wear certain things that are colorful and make me happy. So if that's being noticed, it's because it's presenting the person that I want to portray, that I want to be. And
I think life is so full of the shoulds and the musts, and there are so many that you can't avoid. I was just telling my husband the other day, it's been a really crazy week. And I said, okay, so the actual only things that I can kind of control are what I eat, how much I sleep, and what I'm going to wear. That's what I've got.
And if that's all you have in any given day, you've already won, really. I mean, we're lucky enough to be able to have those choices, because there's lots of people out there who don't. And more importantly, there's some women out there who don't have those choices. So I consider myself very lucky to be able to do that.
I think even for me, the the playing dress up part of clothing
Mhm.
has always resonated with me. I always feel my best, like, you know, I remember dressing dolls and having fun with that and making clothes and
Oh
sewing
yeah.
clothes for
Oh
my
yeah. I
dolls.
had
And then,
like the best
oh,
Barbie collection
oh
you
my
can ever
God.
imagine.
I don't know how to sew, but I put clothes together
Oh yeah.
however I could. I'm like, I've got thread, I've got a needle, and I have a dream.
Exactly. Yeah, if you just turn it around, nobody sees the back
That's
end, right?
right. And then I made clothes for my kids when they were little because I was a young mother who was very bored, and I'm like, I know, I'll
Yeah,
make clothes.
yeah.
I've never made clothes before, but I'm gonna do this.
Well,
But
and
yeah,
that
then
they
playing
were
dress up with
useful
them.
too. So yeah.
Yeah. But I think, you know, it's funny because you don't see those things as something that can be part of your life. Like you said, the playing with wool when you were 4 years
Oh
old. For
my God.
me, playing dress
Yeah.
up and dressing
Mhm.
my Barbies and then dressing my children until they
Yeah.
finally said, stop, not, no
And
more. And I'm like,
you know,
okay, I'll dress myself. Like this
exactly.
playing dress
And
up is going to continue.
I
But
found
yeah,
over
it's how you find joy, right?
Yeah, I was just going to comment as you were talking, it made me think of something, and what that was is just like the whole rhythm of knitting as a kid. It brought some form of calm
Yes.
for me. And I always found that in times of stress or times of trouble or loss or whatever, that I would go to
Yeah.
that because it was calming for me and it was creative and it was a way to express whatever it was that I was feeling at the time. And so for me, it almost became a lifeline. And any kind of creative process therein so far and further on into my life has always been very reassuring for me.
Yeah.
So I think that's a positive as well, and color works into that. I always like to mix colors that not everybody would think would go together, but somehow they do,
Yeah.
and they're very complementary
And
and
even taking a moment to enjoy that, right? To say,
absolutely.
no one would have
Yeah,
noticed. Nobody would have thought of putting these colors together. But let's take a moment to
exactly.
fully
But
appreciate
let's
what we
do
have.
that because we like to be different.
Yeah.
you know and oftentimes, like, sometimes it doesn't work, but most of the time you can sort of just have that sense, and I think that's a gift that you have as well, simply because of how you come up with your creations and how they come together. But I've often been told that I have a good color sense, and I'm starting to believe it. And
Hmm.
but it's taken this long. How sad is that, to believe those things? And I realized that it's been evidenced in pretty much every day that I've lived, is that I've done that all along, and it's finally coming to a point now where I accept, and it's like I can say thank
Yeah.
you for that kind of thing. And isn't that the biggest reward of it all? Like,
You know, that was one
seriously.
of my biggest epiphanies growing up.
Hmm.
I honestly believed that everybody's brain worked pretty much the same way mine did because we're all people and we all have brains. So we all must kind of think the
Yeah.
same and see the same. And so, like, if I understood how to do something, I'd be like, doesn't everybody get it? Or if I didn't understand how to do something, I'm like, this must be so hard for everybody.
It's
The
true.
same
It's
with the
true.
color sense. Like, I can remember a color, a shade of a color.
Hmm.
And I can identify, like, if I see this and then later I go to a paint store, I'll be like, oh, that's
Oh my
exactly the
God,
color of that
totally
part.
get it.
Yeah.
I totally understand that, because it's amazing to me how, like you say, you're looking for something, whether it's an accessory or a piece of paint, like a paint chip, or whatever the case is. It's like you can pick that color out of the tiniest little spot somewhere
Yeah.
along the way and know that it's going to be perfect.
Yeah. And I just thought
And
everybody could do that.
yeah, no, they can't.
I guess
They
I
can't.
guess maybe it's the visual equivalent of perfect pitch. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Exactly. And like you said, some people have it and some people don't, but we all have certain gifts, and hopefully at some point in your life you can find that one that helps feed you
Yeah,
as it were.
exactly. So
Not only like literally but soulfully and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like I'm sort of on the cusp of getting to that place where it's an everyday event, and so that's really reassuring. And now that things are a little bit better, a little more reliable in terms of people walking through the door, it's starting to feel real, which is great.
and speaking of how everybody has these like things, these traits, these talents,
Hmm.
whatever. I think I'm at that point in my life now. Now that I really get that everybody's totally different, I'm like,
Yeah.
what magic trick can you do with yourself? Whether it's understanding or, thinking or smiling or, Kim who works here, her magic trick is her laugh.
Oh,
She has an
isn't that great?
infectious laugh. Oh my gosh. When she laughs, you have to laugh along. And so
Yeah.
I meet people and I'm like, I'm going to find out what your magic
And
is. And it's going to be
and
so
that's
exciting.
exactly true. And the fact that people are willing to help others to find that and also encourage it can only in the long run make things better for everyone and everywhere, because wouldn't that be great if we just focused on all those wonderful things and not always all the other stuff
Yeah.
that goes on in
Well, and
back
that's
here?
how I feel with Sorry Not Sorry. We
Yeah.
were interviewing today for a new position, and I
Mhm.
was talking to Ryan, who's going to be working with us. I said, so you kind of have to understand that even though like we're selling clothes, technically, that's not what
Yeah.
we're doing here. We are
No.
connecting with people. We are helping them find something that makes them feel good about
Yeah.
themselves. We're bringing light into maybe a dreary day. And if
Yeah.
they also happen to buy something, awesome. If they don't,
Exactly.
also awesome.
I don't know.
But we are
Yeah.
trying to find joy.
Exactly. I don't know if you find this, but I certainly do when people come in. And I mean, obviously there was a reason that brought them in, whether it was they were looking for something in particular or whatever. Maybe it's just having a conversation
Yeah.
around what they're seeing and all that. And I find that is particularly rewarding at this point again in my life
Yeah.
where you're hoping. I mean, sure, it's great when they buy something and it means you made the right choice and somebody really liked it and all that. And I mean, I find it even more rewarding when it's something that I made. Absolutely. There's nothing better than watching somebody light up when they put something on that you've created.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all of that combined into the experience, as you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier, that you're creating an experience, and it's so evident in everything that you do. I mean, like you're always encouraging and always putting things on people that maybe they wouldn't have chosen for themselves, but all of a sudden there they are, and it just feels so good. So
Mm-hmm.
I find that to be particularly rewarding as far as the work that I do these days. So yeah, I get it.
So if there was some advice that you would pass along to somebody and say, you know what, I've been around a while.
Yeah.
This is what I'd like to share. What would you share?
Well, I think probably primarily and most importantly is you really have to look after you first. And that may sound really cliche, but really what it comes down to is that if you're not able to look after yourself first, then looking after others is going to be particularly difficult. But I think more in what I'm trying to say is that if you believe that you should wear that purple and lime green outfit just because it makes you feel better, then you should do that, because not only are you satisfying the need for yourself to have that comfort level, you're also putting it out there to telling other people that it is okay. And so by making your own personal choices and being proud of it and being confident enough to pull that off, it will encourage others to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that everybody has to be out there and flamboyantly wearing whatever color they decide. It's just a metaphor for making choices that are true to yourself and following through with it and not be afraid of what else other people think.
And if you're going to be guessing what other people are thinking anyways, because you don't know.
No, exactly.
Why not guess that they're
Isn't
going to
that
love
the
it?
truth?
Yeah, you don't know.
That is so true. I mean, how can we possibly know what other people are thinking? Because then all of a sudden you're making all these perceptions up that aren't true, and you're beating yourself up doing that.
So if you have the choice to choose what you think people are going to think, why not just choose to think that they're going to be thrilled?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's be
You're
honest.
making it up either
do
way.
what makes you feel good.
Yeah. People are going to be thrilled when I dress like a banana today.
Exactly. And you know what? For those that don't, they don't matter to you. Like, do what you have to do.
Do what you have to do.
I really, really think that's true.
I really enjoyed chatting with you today. I've always been impressed with you in our fleeting moments that we pass each other. I'm like,
I know. I know. Maybe this past weekend I was going to come down to the last show, but I just recently came home from vacation and I was just whacked, so I couldn't do it.
Well,
but
that's okay. We can have one of these conversations. You can pick some things from our store. Yeah.
No worries. Thank you so much for
Oh,
having me. It's been a
thank
pleasure,
you
and I
so
really
much for
enjoyed the
chatting with
chit
me.
chat. Great.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Take care, Karen. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.